Let's give it a few more minutes. Hey, Nakapon,
Hey, sorry about that. For some reason, I'm not seeing these things on my calendar. I was on a different email or something.
you're good. Yeah, it's always trickier than it should be. Um, let's see. Well, let's give it one more minute. Um, all right, I'm gonna go ahead with the roll call. So let's see. In no particular order, because I don't have this in alphabetical order. Nakapon, are you here? Great. Leah, are you here?
Present.
Great. Um, Claire, are you here?
Yes, sir.
There we go. Karen, are you here?
Present.
Great. Elaine, are you here? Okay, Elaine is absent. Carl, Carl Beauregard, are you here? Not seeing him. Brandon,
Here, present.
great. And I believe that's it. Um, So thank you all for coming. Just a quick note in terms of attendance. I know everyone's here right now, but the folks who aren't here, if you do miss 3 meetings in a row, then I believe our bylaws say that you may leave the committee. So we may remove you from the committee just because we need folks to attend in order to get a quorum to pass resolutions. So just wanted to make that quick note at the top. But the meeting is now begun at 7:04 p.m. Um, so I spoke with uh, Kelsey Adams earlier today, who is the chair of the rec center at Harrison Rec Center. And I believe she actually just joined the meeting, but she agreed to just actually speak to us at the top of this meeting as a quick guest speaker, tell us about some of the programs that they are doing at Harrison and some of her work. And hopefully there's some ways that we can partner with her. So let me upgrade her to panelist so she can talk about her work. Hi, Kelsey, can you hear us?
Hi, yes, everybody. Hey, how we doing? I can hear you all. Can you hear me?
Lovely. Yes. Thank you so much for joining.
Yay, so glad to be here. So, hey, everybody, I'm Kelsey Adams. I see Karen's on the call, so very familiar with Karen. Been in the U Street neighborhood for about 6 years now. I currently chair Harrison and Friends. I also am contracted as the U Street Main Street manager right now. So, anything in the small business sector that needs to be done on U Street, I'm also the point person there. But getting more into Harrison, yes, hey everyone. So yes, I do chair Harrison. And as you all know, it was kind of dormant for a couple of years, probably like a decade or so. So upon moving into the neighborhood, I worked specifically on the Temperance Garden Alley with the U Street Neighborhood Association. We got that reopened, got that lease out with East Bank, and we're still running that operation for another year or so there. But also piggybacking on the Harrison situation. So when JBG Smith came into the neighborhood, they had a PED. The neighborhood association applied for that. And so we were granted funds there. So I've been able to oversee that budget for Harrison and Friends to create some sort of capital improvements to the space as well as programming. So we remodeled the basketball court. If you've seen the rec that's there, V Street Studio, that has been redone as well with paint on the inside and It's been renovated on the inside as well. Paint on the outside, renovated on the inside. That's specifically ran by Arena Social, but it's still under the umbrella of like the Harrison space. So very nice there. And then as far as programming, so Karen was very beneficial 3 years ago when we did our first Juneteenth event. So we've been running an annual Juneteenth event since then. So this year will be our third annual Juneteenth celebration. It will be on June 19th, right up at Harrison. So it'll have go-go bands, DJs. We're doing a basketball tournament, a one-on-one tournament, kids corner, Gracie's corner. The actor is coming. So really just like a fun-filled Juneteenth celebration in U Street. If you all know, U Street was formerly Black Broadway. So we try to keep that essence in the work that we're doing through the neighborhood association. We know that gentrification is real, so we do want to pay homage to the culture that was built in U Street. So we try to do that. And then moving forward, U Street specifically has had a history of hosting a movie night. It's been one of the biggest community movie nights in the city about 2 decades ago. So we're going to revitalize that idea. We're going to be doing the community movie nights starting in July and hopefully run that programming all the way through September, where we'll be doing hosting a movie series. So that's just on the horizon for currently right now. It was a little situation with DPR, even getting that space back up and running, and a little back and forth there with like the bathroom not working and some other capital improvements that weren't under my purview that needed to be done. But it looks like we finally had some headway on those things. So this summer, it does look like we'll be able to get some more programming. But happy to be in conversation with you all moving forward because we want to make sure that we're doing some intentional programming. As we know, crime is on the rise. U Street is, a gravitating location for the younger folks. So we want to start trying to curate some programming, some more programming that kind of highlights them and invites them in so that the neighborhood isn't so chaotic anymore. So happy to be involved with you all and in conversation with you all to figure out, what that can look like and other programming that you all may want to consider hosting over at the Harrison Rec and just whatever we can do as a community. And I feel like I've been talking for a long time, so I'm gonna stop and let you all maybe give me some questions, feedback, or anything that you all might want to convey.
How about it, Karen?
Well, first, I want to welcome Kelsey, as always. It's always a great pleasure. And as she mentioned, we worked intimately on a project with Harrison, and we both have a very good love for Harrison. And the historic people really do need to know the historic part of Harrison's area right there in that spot before the recreation center was placed there. It was actually a movie theater for African American community quite some time ago. So reprogramming it for movie night is always a big win. And anything that we can do to have a good safe space for our young people. And I suggested that we get a skating rink in this area to introduce that as one of the activities that most of our young people love to do. Kelsey, that's something that I'm still really trying to push. We had, I think Franklin Hall has a huge space inside, but now we have the Sandlot. But we want to get a place where the young people feel welcomed to be able to know that that space is specifically for them and they won't be turned away just because they're young and they like to do things different. We really want to show that we are trying to grow young adults in the community that's civically engaged and also proactively engaged into the social environment of our community. So Kelsey, excuse me, Kelsey, anything that we can do to be of assistance, please let me know. And I really appreciate you coming to the table. Thank you.
No, and I would be remiss if I didn't give Karen her flowers. So I had to work with the council member and Karen specifically to get Harrison up and running. Like it was a whole kerfuffle getting that space, to the point that it is at what you see today. So Karen, she's really, invested in this. So I'm doing, what I can to make sure that we are keeping that culture alive and creating programs and opportunities for our youth here in the city.
It's definitely a great resource to have in the community. I know earlier today, Kelsey, we were talking about how can we try to offer more programming that could, alleviate the situation at the U Street Metro sometimes on big nights, big going out nights where we have like a lot of youth all there and it's dangerous for them, dangerous sometimes for the community or difficult for the community. And then you have like obviously, lots of crime unfortunately happening on U Street. And I know you had a I think a very interesting idea that we could maybe go out and actually try to survey youth who are out there to see, what are they looking for? What types of places are they looking for to hang out in spaces that they want to be in the community? I'm curious if you had any other thoughts on that or
I
what.
actually did. I actually tweeted it when we got off the phone just to
Oh,
get a
really?
feel,
Okay.
just to get a sense of like the community. And that's probably
Sure.
my most well performed tweet in like this year,
Really?
for real, for real. Like I probably have at this point, I know I got like 30 retweets on that. And
I gotta
folks
get
are
back up
really like,
there.
yeah, folks are like, hey man, has anyone ever done this? And nobody's responding with they have done that also. So I think, more importantly, I don't think anyone has surveyed the youth to see what it is that they want to do and what programs or whatever the city needs to offer them so they're not breaking car windows. So I'm definitely game to be a part of that team or, lead the team or I don't know how we need to do that, but I do feel like it need to be a team of us that actually live in the neighborhood. It don't need, you don't even have to be from your ANC role or elected
Mhm.
official role. You need to be able to meet people where they are. Like, hey, we live here. We're trying to make sure since y'all are coming to our community, we can't tell y'all not to come, but what can we provide over here so when you come, you're not breaking my window? My own personal car window has been broken in 13 times, and I live on 13th
Yeah.
and T. So I align with, figuring out what needs to happen so the kids can stop breaking windows.
But you're right, Kelsey. The ask hasn't been. It's like the specific ask has to be done to the ones who. I mean, they when they sign up for a meetup and they say, okay, well, we're going to meet up and we're going to all go to A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That group of people has not been asked specifically. It's knowing exactly who the target audience is that we're asking, who decides that they, hey, guess what, we're going to hit U Street, we're going to hit the wharf, we're going to hit wherever it is in the city, and when they're ready to do that meetup, that particular demographic is where we need to do the survey in it. I mean, not necessarily because a lot of these kids, when you young people, wherever they're coming from, they're not all DC residents. And so we have to be cognizant of that whenever we're doing surveys. We have each community has a particular area that they have a fabric of that particular community, and the visitors, so to speak, they're not necessarily from the U Street area, but they want to have fun like they assume that the people in the U Street area like to have fun or that they like to have fun.
Yeah.
So that's where we have to do the outreach at. Thank you.
All right, let's go to Brandon and then Claire. Yeah, let's go in that order.
Hey Kelsey, wanted to ask, is there a request for capital for improvements for the area to that you have a goal set for? And then the other half of it would be how difficult is permitting, and when there is events in the area, could we like utilize the space for visitors and people to utilize the space versus crowding the street, or is that even an option?
Um, yeah, so definitely. So you go through me to use the space, and because I actually have a friends of partnership, and Karen might can tell you more details about it, but because we have the friends of, it's a lot of stuff that's already in our contract for us to do. So we don't specifically need permits to do a lot of stuff. We just need to inform DPR that we're going to do it. And then they have to have the ranger come over and open whatever space it is that we're using. But the friends of contract or partnership already states that we basically have oversight of the space in general to do like whatever programming. And what was the second question?
Yeah, so because I live right here on 14th in W, so I'm right by U Street, and I was asking, is there a way we could leverage the space for like an overflow or to have things there to utilize the space so people aren't in the street and near the metro station?
Yeah, and I think that kind of boils down onto who it is and what it is that's happening. Like, is the person willing to host? If it's like an actual something to host, are they willing to host it up there? I know I just was at the basketball court around 9:40 at night just last week, and the basketball court was still open with the lights on the court. So I know it still kind of has some lighting over there. I'm not sure if people even really know too much about Harrison and it being a space in general, because before it was kind of brought to my attention, I hadn't paid it any mind either. So I think that might also be a step, but we definitely are able to like utilize it and get folks to do something there versus doing it, outside in the street. Like if you all know, I'm the executive director of Long Live Go Go, so we're not doing Juneteenth on 14th and U. We're doing it at Harrison. So I mean, I feel like if I've already utilized that vessel, other folks, should definitely be tapping into that.
Right. Thank you.
And then Claire.
Hi, ma'am. Thanks for joining us, Kelsey. I don't mean to be a dweeb about this, but I am a professional public opinion researcher, and I believe what you're describing as far as like a research project is usually undertaken by pollsters and market researchers and professional interviewers, and then it usually gets presented once and thrown in the trash. So if what you're floating is the idea of like a research project, especially where the audience is minors, and that gets kind of sticky, what is the process for approving the study, sort of undertaking it, shaping it? This could be months long, and the summer could be over before then.
No, I'm kind of more seeing it as like a hands-on project. Like the team who would go out there, we would probably go out there for a consecutive amount of days or so, and then we would really just compile the data amongst us, between us, because we've actually talked face to face with the people who are doing it versus going through professional researchers and all of
Yes,
that.
ma'am. Professional researchers do tend to talk to the people who are doing it.
Right. But they aren't the people of that community. They're professional researchers. So if it's
Yeah.
coming from, you got to meet people where they are literally, because we're the ones affected by it. We have a different approach than someone who's like a professional researcher. So we're going to have a different conversation than a professional researcher to figure out exactly what they want to do. Two, I also do this. So I go to schools and I talk to students as it is now, and then I go back and kind of evaluate what students have expressed to me to help DCPS out with their whole cultural component of educational advancement.
Sure, that was the answer to that question, but not my question.
So professional researchers, no, I don't want to go that route. I think us just surveying them and going through the data ourselves and actually doing the programming that they ask for, they say they need to see, something they can go to on Fridays from this time to this time, and then we actually have that space for them from that time to that time, and we see a decrease in crime, then we don't need a professional researcher to do that.
Yeah, so what does the process look like with non-professional researchers?
That's what it would look like. It would look like us going out there for a consecutive amount of weeks, taking that information back, seeing,
Can
and
you
then
give me a
coming
little
up
bit
with.
more specifics on like the research process, on like the proposal, the funding, the interviewers, how the data is presented, who would be available and who would be receiving that?
This was just honestly a conversation we were having earlier, but the folks doing the interviews would be us. So I would say literally like 5 people who come from ANC1B who are willing to come out. Like I know I can pull people from the neighborhood association because I also lead in that space as well. And we care about this. So it's just pulling folks who actually care. And I know we could get those folks together in a week or so. It could be just a really community-driven initiative.
And who would be structuring sort of the, the questions asked, and then who would be structuring the presentation of data and like the analysis?
The team who decides that they want to go out and do the interviews. So
And who is the team?
that's what I'm saying. This call is determining who that is. So folks on
I
this
don't
Okay,
think
call.
this is a
I would just love
fully
to, I would love to answer that question.
real fast. I don't think this is a fully fleshed out like plan. This was just an idea we discussed. I definitely think, on the one hand, it's difficult to design a representative, sample or a poll or something like that. But on the other hand, I think it's helpful to get feedback, even if it's not fully representative of all youth, to just talk with them directly and do an interview with them and get a sense of ideas, go out and actually talk to the kids who are out there on U Street gathering late at night. I do
There,
see that we have someone in the audience from the council member's office. So I'm going to allow them to talk because I think they might have a question about this or maybe a comment, something that could be helpful. Um, Sabrine, am I pronouncing your name correctly, first of all?
Yeah, that's correct. I just
Great.
wanted to chime in and say I think Kelsey's idea is actually really great. And I think that's something the council member would be interested in speaking more to you about if you would like to connect with me offline after this meeting or sometime this week.
I actually had a conversation with her about doing this years ago. I just never really really
Yeah.
thought of a reason and a plan to do it. So this was honestly a conversation again I was just having earlier, something that needs to be done. And I know it needs to be a community driven initiative, but no, I haven't thought out of the whole, what the process will look
I
like.
mean, I definitely Claire's making some good points because I do think you
Yeah,
have to
but
think
no,
about
Kelsey, I think it's a great idea to like have it be a community-based initiative as opposed to like hiring another consulting firm to do these surveys, people that are disconnected from the community and, actually bringing in people from the community who can connect with these kids, like credible messengers or violence interrupters that have like day-to-day interactions, or like weekend interactions with the kids and the youth. So yeah, I'll connect with you if you can just like drop your email in the chat and we can talk a little bit more about this.
Sounds
I,
good.
I would like to say hello to Sabrine Khadi
Hi,
and of course,
Karen.
yeah, you Ray.
You know me. I
I
go to the 3D CAC meetings.
Yeah, oh I know who you are, Sabrine. I just want to I hear the questioning that Claire is proposing, and so I want you to know that we hear you, Claire, but I also know exactly what Kelsey is really bringing forward because it's a different type of dynamic. It's not something that you can it's not a commercial style dynamic when you approach the youth today because one, you do have to have a built-in relationship with the community. And you should have a built-in relationship where the youth are drawn to speak to you. And quite naturally, it's not something that they will ignore. You don't want to have someone who they feel in general that they will ignore you or you're not someone who can mirror any type of connections with them. And I know some of the commercial marketing posters slash surveyors, they have their shirts on and whatever on or however way they do it with their clipboards, etc. That's really not what a lot of the young people are using as a way of connecting. There's a different approach, and unfortunately that's it's a little benign. Well, I'm not going to say
No,
benign.
yeah, yes,
It's a
ma'am. I'm
little
sorry to interrupt, but I don't want to waste time because I think I must have been misunderstood. No professional or reputable interviewer would actually use people from not from this community.
okay. And I didn't want you to stop me from saying what I was going to say. I really did want to say that I understood where you were coming from, and but I do want to make it clear that the connection to the actual community and to the target audience that we're trying to reach, that it would have to be people from in that group setting, and they would have to know people and influence other people. So that's where I was going at, and I really do understand how it works with where Kelsey is coming from because I know the environments that she navigates. So I certainly understand where she was coming from. And Sabrine certainly also has a connection with the council member's office because if you're in those spaces, you certainly would be able to work within that. But Claire, the questions that you were asking, it's always good to have a clear understanding of where you want to go in order what and for the outcomes that you want to achieve. So I think that that's something that we could wordsmith here so that we know what we're expecting and what we really want to achieve from these any of these surveys that we do. So thank you so much, ladies. I really appreciate your input. Thank you.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Just one final word. To be clear, I was not interested in the process. I'm interested in the product. The process is immaterial to me. If it's led by community members, that's absolutely fine. In fact, that's preferable. I was interested in the product and how it would be accessible to any kind of oversight and who would be sort of engaging with this so that the process does not get thrown away when we have the product and we can actually engage with it and use that information to make the community better.
Yeah, I
Again,
think
Claire, it just
process
sounds like
material, product.
Claire. Sounds like you should be on the team. That's exactly where we're at
I
with it.
agree.
It's
I
being
agree.
Hey, no,
thought
I'm not
out.
from the community. I shouldn't be, but
No,
No, but
you
it's
can be
helpful
on the
to have.
team for your
It's
data and for the
yeah,
process. The thing is, the whole initiative is a bigger plan, just like you said. You're asking these questions, so that is the product. So you have people who are going to work through the process, it's people that can oversee the product, and you can come up with what the data points need to look like for the product. We can
sounds
all
great,
work
ma'am.
on
I'm
this
on board.
together.
yeah.
Thank you.
I
I
think
mean,
that's a
that's how
great
we're
idea.
all connecting together because, see, the thing is, just because you may be a subject matter expert in a particular thing does not mean you can't contribute just because you're not from the community. We're trying to get as many subject matter experts together as well as people who are having a real life experience of what we're experiencing to get, here. Everybody can contribute. There is something for everybody to do, especially when we're here in these spaces.
So, in the interest of time, I think we have to move on, but I think these are all great points. I would love for Kelsey, it sounds like you're going to connect with Sabrine, and then maybe, I can chat with you again. We can get an update. And it sounds like the committee definitely wants to be involved because, however we design this, I think it's definitely going to have to be community led. And maybe it's relatively informal, but I definitely think Claire's right. And, like we've discussed, there's going to have to be a methodology. There's going to have to be an idea of what the goals are, but it sounds like there's a lot of interest in this idea, so I am excited, and I definitely think the ANC and this committee can support. So unfortunately, we've got a lot of other things to get to, but Kelsey, I just want to thank you so much for joining last minute with our meeting, and definitely looking forward to continuing to partner and find ways that we can support the rec center. Great. So the next topic to go over is just our usual crime and public safety updates. It looks like MPD is not on, unfortunately. They may not have the meeting fully in their calendar, so I'll definitely try to follow up with them to make sure that they can join.
Francois, sorry, I couldn't get off mute. I got one thing else I needed to add. I
Oh
brought
yeah,
my
yeah.
friends on this call one moment. So I have my friends on the call. I don't know if you guys have seen, but we have cookies on U Street coming to the U Street corridor. Everybody familiar with that? The dispensary,
I
okay.
think
So I brought on James. James is gonna give you the rundown on what's going on. I know you guys got to get to the rest of your agenda, but if you can get him on, Francois.
yeah. No worries. Definitely we can get a quick update because I'm sure that'll be. I wonder if it's already gone before the ANC in various ways. James. All right. He should be able to talk.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Excuse me. My name is Rabbi James Kahn, and I'm the owner of Cookies DC, which is a licensed and locally owned medical cannabis dispensary, which some of you may have noticed on because we recently put up some signage on or in our windows at 1115 U Street. We were previously, before us, there was a licensed medical cannabis dispensary, Capital City Care, that was located there for many years. I purchased Capital City Care. But we're rebranding it under Cookies, which is the world's most recognized cannabis brand, but we're doing it in a very much a local way. We have a local grower, someone who's been growing in DC for over a decade, one of the best growers on the East Coast, Alternative Solutions. And I have been working in DC cannabis since 2013 when my family and I opened Tacoma Wellness Center, which is DC's longest running dispensary. Tacoma has a long tradition of community engagement, is a 10-time winner of Best of DC, has a perfect compliance and safety record. And all of this is a history that I really intend to emulate with Cookies on U Street. So just telling you, I'm so excited, committed to being a good neighbor, to really listening, collaborating, and to contributing positively to the community. The first way we're going to try to do that is by throwing a great opening celebration on Friday, July 11th. We're going to have a ribbon cutting at 4 p.m. We're going to have some live entertainment with some of DC's most beloved artists. And we're going to also be hosting a special preview of the store, hopefully that where some of you guys can you'll receive invitations and have a chance to look at it and to ask any questions. And you'll be getting an invite in the following days. But just want to introduce myself. I have my event coordinator, Caroline Phillips, is on the call, is at this meeting as well. She's can tell you more about some of our plans and some of the work we're doing to make sure this is a safe event. But here to answer any questions and just to introduce myself and say hi.
Great. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. Definitely send me the info about the event because we can try to distribute it
Great.
through our listservs and such that the ANC has. Yeah, and appreciate the community outreach. We've got a packed agenda, so perhaps we may need to move on. But thank you again for speaking. And there's other committee meetings going on, such as the Transportation Committee. If you have, I believe Kelsey mentioned that there were some parking issues that you were looking into. So would definitely recommend reaching out to that committee, and they can also help with other things. But yeah, let's be in touch. I don't know if you have my email address, but I can send it in the chat for everybody.
Please, I'll take it down and reach out.
Wonderful.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, James.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so moving on quickly to the crime updates. Like I said, MPD is not on. I was wondering, Karen, whether you could maybe give us a readout on what's been happening in the past month and what happened specifically last weekend. I know that I know some things, but it sounds like you may have more information than I do.
I'm sorry, Francois, I hadn't prepared for today's meeting for that, to do a readout.
That's okay. That's okay.
No,
I
we
mean,
had
just
the
if there were any things you wanted to flag.
Well, I thought it was coming later on in our agenda in regards to the public safety walk that I wanted to work with this commission on. Outside of our commission or public safety walk that we're specifically trying to plan specifically for the U Street, T Street area where we will be walking through the hot spots or the spots in the area that we specifically find to be a the perception where our community is feeling a lot of fear or lack of safety.
Wait,
Or
Karen,
they
really quick. I want to save the conversation about the walk till the end. I was just asking because MPD couldn't join. It's okay if you're not able to give a full readout, but whether there were
did
specific crime
you wanted
incidents.
the stats? You wanted the
Not
stats?
not even the stats, just what happened last week. You mentioned there was a homicide that I did
Yes,
not know
we did.
about.
Yes.
I
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I know
Well,
there was a homicide at
yes.
900 Berry Place near Florida that happened a few weeks ago. Was there
We
another
had
homicide
one
that
on
happened
S
last week?
Street. We
Okay.
just had one on S Street. But what I
Yeah.
didn't prepare for to give the stats.
That's
That's
okay.
why I
That's not,
wanted the
and
stats.
I thought MPD was going to join, so that's not.
Okay.
Yeah, it's totally
I
okay.
can pull my stat report and then I'll come back to you. How does that sound?
Yeah, all good. No
Okay.
worries. I just wanted
Yeah,
to see if
I
anybody
had
had
no
seen
idea that
what I
that's
said.
what you were expecting.
So,
But
yeah.
because we were going to talk about the public safety walk, that's what I was prepared for
Yeah,
tonight.
sorry, I have that on the agenda later, and I'll be sure to drop that in the chat at the beginning.
And I do have a hard stop at 8:15, and I just want to make sure that you know
Yep,
about that. Okay,
totally. Um, yeah, so um, moving on because I think that there are some other topics that we want to get to. Um, the discussion about the article I sent out. I was wondering if we just talk about that for 5 or 10 minutes. Curious if folks had a chance to read it, what they thought about it. I have a few discussion questions, but to folks, what do folks think of the central thesis of the article, which is that DC needs more capacity to solve its crime problem?
as a person who's been to the town halls, it just seems like the system is, for lack of a better word, just not functional. No. Um, I mean, that the article just kind of echoed a lot of things that I had heard in some of these town halls, which is like obviously not enough officers. When people are arrested, it's hard to get evidence enough to get them to go to prosecution. Prosecution's not moving cases forward. When they get to a certain point, judges seem to just, throw things out. And so it's I think it's just like a creates this morale issue, like what are we even doing here type of thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, not to be a Debbie Downer on that, but that's just what that's just what I'm seeing in that whole thing. And as a person, our business is right there on 14th in Florida, and we've had quite a few incidences in there. And I understand police is very, very busy. It takes them a long time to get there, and a lot of times we have to resolve those situations ourselves. And I know I understand that there's just not enough people there. So I mean, we see it too. It's almost like we don't even bother to call anybody. I actually just call my students who are MPD before I call anybody else because I know they'll show up. So yeah, you know, just kind of echoing what I read in the article. Well, what can we do? We're always trying to get more. As a proposal that we've always tried to put forward is, try to get more MPD training, training martial arts. But that's not just not like, give them martial arts, but we want to create a good relationship with them too, because a lot of times I think they feel like they're kind of it's almost like a job for them. They're removed. They're not really even part of the community. That's just how I feel sometimes. So I'm trying to figure out ways to connect with them and pull them in and try to figure out like, hey, we're all in this together.
Hmm. Yeah, Claire, feel free to
Sure.
give your thoughts.
I think of, and oh gosh, knock on the, I think like, oh God, you call your friends at MPD before you call 911 is insane.
Yeah.
I like my heart goes out to that. But when I think of short-term solutions versus long-term solutions and forest through trees, immediately my mind goes to a program in Baltimore where they incentivize the purchase of Ring cameras. And I am against the Panopticon as much as any other libertarian in the world. But maybe expanding that and maybe having a little bit more visibility, a little bit more of a Panopticon would disincentivize or at least help prosecution, like even before I start talking about testing rape kits.
I don't even think they have enough detectives to process any of that information. We have plenty of footage all the time. We're willing to give it to you. We're willing to, we actually retrieve it from a lot of places, and they're like, no, we don't even want to look at it.
No, hurt. I mean, I live above a bank, dude, at 7th and T. And like, if there's anyone that should have a Panopticon, it's a bank, and still they can't solve shootings out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point that, we have the Camera Connect DC program, which I think does provide some rebate for purchasing a home, door camera. But, do we have the capacity in our police department to pour through all that footage, use it effectively, bring it as evidence, bring those cases, have the U.S. attorney or the DC Attorney General prosecute? I do think that that's symptomatic of, the capacity problem. Brandon, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, and definitely improve coordination. I'm pretty sure it's got to be a morale issue. Law enforcement, it's a tough job, right? But they missed the meeting today. Coordination with committees like ours and organizations that can assist in doing some things. I think can definitely be improved, and kind of get an idea of where they're struggling or what blind spots that they have, so that resources can be shifted and allocated appropriately so they can focus on, more matters that are within their wheelhouse.
Really quick, I see that Latoya Davenport from the U.S. Attorney's Office is on the call and wants to speak. And definitely, I really appreciate that she's been able to come to a lot of the meetings, including a community safety meeting that happened in LaJoy Park recently. that's about these sort of ongoing shootings there. For those who don't know, there's a crew beef between the LaDroit housing project as well as the Columbia Heights Village and other projects in the area. And it seems like there's sort of a cycle of violence every 30 days. There's a back and forth shooting. So, Latoya was able to speak at that meeting. I do think that, she's been great about outreach from the U.S. Attorney's Office. And I am curious, Latoya, your thoughts about these issues as well as how this committee can help with, say, the um, community impact statements that I believe you mentioned at that meeting, and whether there's any specific cases right now that we should be focusing on. But feel free to
Good
talk.
evening, everybody. This is Latoya Davenport. So I don't have any case updates, but
Mhm.
I will tell you, U.S. Attorney Pyro, she is very interested in getting into the hot spots to help with the prosecution in some of these neighborhoods. So she has requested to come to community meetings. I sent over a request. I know Ms. Gold, she responded. And if you would like
Right.
her to come to the ANC1B meeting, she would be more than happy where she could further discuss what her prosecution plan looks like for the future.
That would be amazing if
But
she
I
could.
know she's like
Mhm.
she's into like domestic violence. We're about to open a whole new like domestic violence unit. So she is really hitting the ground hard and trying to help with this crime in DC.
Great. Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think it would be great if she could come to the 3D meeting. The ANC1B meeting would be fantastic as well. So I'll definitely reach out and try to contact you to hopefully set something up there. Karen, did you want to speak?
Certainly. I really want you all to have the full opportunity, and I know Francois, you had it for a moment when you used to regularly attend the 3D CAC meetings, where you had an opportunity to meet not only with the U.S. Attorney's Office, you have the Attorney General, you also have your council people, as well as directly with MPD. Now, you get briefings during the 3D CAC meetings, which are held at the and I knock upon you also attended one of the meetings, one with your mom, and that was quite
Yes,
some
that's right.
time ago. Um, and in which you get a chance to connect directly with MPD and speak not only to the commander, because the commander leads the meeting, and what's happening not just in ANC1B but the entire third district. Now, this meeting also gives you briefings directly from the chief of police. Now, the building of the relationships happens there directly at the third district, which manages this ANC. And I always I can't I would implore consistently that everyone shows up, because you can have one-on-one discussions and ask all the questions that you have. Now, that's where you build your relationships. And as Nakapan mentioned, he met quite a few officers there, who he told them to come to his location. So I want not just to have your friends, but the connection, the community policing is really, really important. Okay. We cannot do anything in this community without having that extra set of eyes that you all have, whether you're out located over the top of the Wells Fargo, whether you're located over top of Industrial Bank, whether you're located on over top of Ben's Chili Bowl, wherever you are, or Pie in the Sky Pizza Place, or at Nakapon's location on the corner of 14th and Florida. I think that we need to show that building the community through actual community policing. Each one of the ANCs has 2,500 people within their SMDs. There's no reason why each AMC member has not connected with their SMDs in regards to public safety, their constituents in regards to public safety. And you can that in regards to the article that you sent out, Francois, there's that perception of fear
Hmm.
and perception of bad public safety in regards to how you perceive actual danger Is it, and what is it what does danger look like to you? And it will vary and from various persons' perspectives. Like knock upon, he knows and he probably say, hey, that may be lightweight work, but someone else may walk down the street and be fearful and fretful for everything as it moves down the street. Or some people just don't notice. We've done surveys and we've asked people who live right in the midst of a drug infested area and asked them, how do you feel? And amazingly, we do surveys often, but amazingly some people say, oh, it's okay. And I'm like amazed. I'm like, really? We get one perception where people are feel as though they're highly impacted, but then on the other hand we'll get people who just, it doesn't bother them. So it's based on what your actual perception, that broken window syndrome of what I mean, connotation of what your actual perception of what crime is, what affects you. So
Hmm.
we want everyone to build a good relationship with the police department. You have this opportunity all the time, and as Latoya mentioned, you have the opportunity to meet the attorney general, I mean U.S. attorney, in person at these meetings, because they always have someone at the meeting that you can talk to about your community impact statements. And most of the crimes that we have is crimes of opportunity based on the systemic issue with the drugs. The substance abuse is a huge problem in this neighborhood, that we don't have anyone addressing those particular problems. And of course, that is where a lot of the crime is coming from. Kelsey
Yeah.
mentioned that she had her window broken 13 times. That happens because people are looking for money in order to ways to sell products in order to get more drugs. So we have to do something about that. But then when we ask people to put a recovery center, not a stabilizing center, but a way for people to get off drugs in there, and in some of these, we have over what 385 vacant properties in the area, to place one of those recovery centers so people can anchor themselves there and get treatment. Nobody wants that to happen. So we have to truly address real problems in our community. And so,
Yeah.
and stop placating it and just do something real about it. And then also have places like we talked about earlier for young people to go, so that they won't be so idle, that they feel welcomed at, and so that's how you start to address real issues in our community.
Yeah. I mean,
I
I
don't
think
care how
that's,
many surveys
yeah.
we do.
No, I think that's very true. And I hope that we can continue we can actually do some of that work. We can actually get some of those things done by talking to the youth, by supporting the rec centers, by going to the meetings, building the relationships. I hear you.
Dealing with the substance abuse
Dealing with the
issues.
substance abuse. I know that, we brought Johnny in from HIPS and hopefully he'll come back, because I
He's
know
not
that.
the only person. I
Mhm.
actually had a veterans. They actually have some actual substance abuse locations that do more than what Johnny does. Johnny does one part with collecting the needles and stuff. We need people
Yes.
to
Yeah.
have recovery places.
I
And
agree.
I
I
have
agree.
20 different agencies that we sat down and had a meeting with, so that they can actually tackle this problem for real. I mean, that's the real way. We have
Yeah.
to work with the
Yeah.
Department of Behavioral Health. It has to be real work done, not
I
something
agree.
just
I do
talking
want to
about.
say real quick, and I think that's 100% right. And that's one thing that I wanted to focus on more, is not just, sort of the needle or syringe exchange and the harm reduction, but how do we get people into treatment? How do we get them on the track to better lives? I do want to just quickly, before we end this discussion, just share my screen to show this one graph from the article, which I think is pretty interesting. Can folks see it? Sounds like yes. So yeah, I think that on the one hand, we do really need to tackle these issues in terms of what can we do to help people with substance abuse disorder? What can we do to help our youth? And I think that is one track that we have to pursue. Simultaneously, I think we can't ignore that, there's been this significant decline in MPD activity since the pandemic. And there's a lot of different things that may be causing that. They don't have enough officers. Their officers may be demoralized. A lot of experienced officers are retiring. The culture might not be right, but there is this decline in our criminal justice system's capacity, it seems like, to enforce the law, to arrest people that are committing crimes. And so, I think that that is just something that we have to think about in conjunction with all the things you spoke about, Karen, that we are living in this backdrop of MPD doing roughly 40-50% less than they were doing before the pandemic. And I'm not blaming MPD necessarily. I think there's a lot of great things they're doing and they're working very hard, but this is just sort of the reality that it feels like we're living in right now. Claire, I want to give you a chance to speak, and then sounds like Karen, you have one more thought, but then we really need to get to the resolution discussion so that we can actually talk about the work that we want to do. So it was really quick, Claire and Karen, feel free to go ahead.
Yes, sir. No, I'll take no more than 15 seconds after this.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. I think it's actually the perception of activity and the perception of capacity for police influence and police like ability to enforce the law. And I see that not to like a victim impact statement, but I see that like right at the corner at 17th and T, where the presence of police officers does decrease crime. And it may be broken window theory, and I may be a little bit like less forest through the trees, but it's actually more of the perception of my safety.
Yeah, totally. Karen, quick comment before we move to talking about Brandon's resolution about violence interrupters.
Yeah, I see the forest and trees on your screen. Are you
Oh,
to do another
no, I
preview?
gotta stop sharing. There we go.
Okay. Yeah,
See my whole calendar there.
I wasn't trying to add the pun into what Claire was saying.
No, that was good. That was
However,
good. Hopefully you got some nice redwoods.
yes. So, but I know that, and this is a subject that not only am I passionate and compassionate about, I'm like, we have to be, the resolution is important because we have to be remedy driven when we are
Mhm.
talking about how we're going to address the true issues in our community. And it starts at the root where we are at this community level. I know that the ANC
Mhm.
holds great weight when it comes to these resolutions. But not only should we present these resolutions or our ideas, it should be something that we follow through with testimony in front of our city council. But because we're working in a city that has a $1 billion budget decrease, and then also a lot of the budget factors that we're looking at where we're going to get a reduction in all of the different amenities that people
Mhm.
who need
Yeah.
things is not going to have any longer. We're going to
Mhm.
see a sharp increase, I'm sure, of
Mhm.
crime that is based on poverty, crime that's based on additional needs where people are medicating themselves through their substance abuse. We're going to see more of an increase. But in regards to the public safety has been the budget for public safety has been decreased as well. So
Mhm.
the violence interruption programs have lost their funding. SNAP benefits and Medicaid benefits and Medicare benefits have lost their funding. So you're going to see um, the terrible response to the way society will really feel this incredible misuse of funds that's about to happen. So when we're talking about anything, we have to look at the funding first. How is this, whatever it is that we're interested in, are we going to have the provided funding for everything that we need? When Brandon mentioned capital, we need capital for everything to take care of these issues. We can't just assume that everybody is privileged to not have the family structure that they need, not have the home life that they need, and not have the counseling that they need in order to take care of these issues. And also when we're talking about youth, and I've said this over and over again, and I know you're tired of me saying it, is they need to have a place to land. They need to have a good childhood. These kids do not have anywhere to have a good childhood space. Unlike some of us who've had the opportunity to have that, they do not have this. So immediately everybody blames the juveniles, and well, not say juveniles, they blame youth, because you don't want to use juvenile because that's a derogatory term, but they blame youth all the time, and then they blame people who are impoverished all the time, and people who have the substance abuse problems, but they never address why the issue is happening. And so I'm just going to say that, but I really do say for MPD, the officers are working hard, they're working overtime. Yes, we need more officers because we do not have the amount of officers that we've had before to especially for all of we have 717,000 people in the city and only 3,000 plus officers, and we need more officers on the force in order to tackle any of these public safety issues. So when you're asking, well, man, let's look at the numbers, we see a decrease. We also have to look at the legislation. Has the legislation to address these issues decreased? Yes, the legislation has changed. Some things, it's not criminal activity that people want to have it as a criminal activity. So you have to look at it from that aspect too, and whether or not people's constitutional rights are being violated. There's a lot of things that has changed, Francois, from those particular numbers that you looked at, those data sets. And that's it. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more, Karen. I just want to say that I think there's a lot of overlap between people whose risk tolerance is a lot lower and people whose tolerance is a lot higher. And I think we can meet somewhere in the middle with increased officer presence.
Explain to me your definition of risk tolerance, Claire, because I need
I really have to.
I
I'm
know
sorry. We gotta move
I'm
on.
gonna go with Francois on
Brandon's
this
done a
one.
lot of work on this resolution. I don't think it's respectful to him for us not to get to it with the time we have.
I
So
would love to hear from Brandon.
yeah, Brandon, would you mind sharing out about the work we've talked about with the violence interrupters, and hopefully we can get some ideas from the committee?
Yeah. So we talked about, well, based on the information that you gave us in the last article and the conversations we had, we have two violence intervention programs who are there's it's duplicative. So the goal is to consolidate into one violence intervention effort and provide the proper resources and funding so that they could assist law enforcement in reducing crime. And the resolution discusses that and addresses some oversight parameters that can be put in place, which kind of touches on everything that we discussed: research, surveys, private citizen participation, and basically monitoring where funds are being allocated so we could assist the community in helping this problem. Um, yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
See, Karen's asking if we can share it on screen. I don't know if you have it pulled up, Brandon. I can probably.
Yeah, I have it pulled up. If you want, give me 1 second.
Just for some context, the ANC voted at its last meeting to advocate against the funding cuts to the violence interrupter programs, but we left out some specifics because we do want to get a better sense of what's happening with the two programs. One's, which is under the mayor, Cure the Streets, which is under the Office of the Attorney General. It seems like Cure the Streets, the plug has been pulled on a lot of those programs, perhaps prematurely. So we're trying to figure that out. Yes, Brandon, let me give you permission to share your screen. But I do think to what we were talking about earlier, we have the funding, which is important, but then how is the money being used? How can we advocate for the best violence interrupter programs that we can have? Because we do have some really talented people working in the field. So these were some of the ideas that Brandon and I had, and we definitely want to get people's feedback. We want to speak with the council. So Brandon, feel free to talk about the specific provisions.
All right. So I made an initial draft and then I made some feedback, as you guys can see, with the red lines here from Francois's initial feedback, but I wanted to share this with you all to see if there's anything that the group would like to offer. And then just to I'll briefly mention this, and Karen, this is kind of what I wanted to discuss. We wanted to take this resolution and some of the ideas and see if we could get more MPD metrics as far as crime, discuss strategic plan, goals. If there's to take some of Claire's idea, if there's a way we could leverage other organizations, researchers, universities, students, if we can tap into some sort of collective funding so that we could do all of this surveys, include the community, along with this resolution to apply some political pressure for next
And
year.
one
Yeah,
quick thing that I wanted to talk about is that we really want to work with, I think Reverend Judy's actually on the call. We do want to work directly with her and some
correct.
of the other violence interrupters to, as well as Brandon was saying, the council member and potentially, you know, experts, academics who have studied this, to craft this resolution. So we're hoping to do, a lot more outreach. This is definitely like a very early initial
Yeah,
draft with just some sort of broad areas of work that we could do. But we do see this as being, let's talk with all the people involved and
yeah,
try to find what they need as well as what other
yeah.
folks in other communities are advocating for and think would be helpful.
Yeah, I think if we can get some focus groups, some information, we could really create something similar to somewhat of an OIG report and, get some of our own information so that we could shop this with other ANCs and other folks on other commissions so that we can get support behind this. But I'll open the floor for discussion. I don't want to talk too much.
Did you want my input, or did you want
Yes,
me to?
ma'am. We could
Okay.
do both.
Yeah,
We could do
yeah.
both. Yeah.
There's just a couple of wordsmithing things. Change that ANC from 102 to just 1B, and then also the mayor's office of the deputy mayor's office of public safety and justice, and then also the MPD does their they do some analysis, but I will always go through the mayor's office of public safety and justice because that's their wheelhouse, and they do the public safety across the city, and they get a lot of input from all of the agencies, including the violence interruption programs. And I know the deputy mayor, Lindsay Apia, um, she had shared she should have been well, she's been sharing information about how the interruption violence interruption programs work, and she heads up that. So I would actually work directly with her office if I was you, Brandon, to get a lot of the data and as to how things are operating. She'll pull the information on how the programs have been working across the city and what works well. But I do understand from Councilmember Nadeau's office that one, that there was a study that was done that was using some incorrect data. That what's her name? I think her last name is Sneed. Is a new lady who just started with the Ones program, and she just was appointed a little bit earlier this year. I haven't spoken with her directly, but I think that you could be probably benefit more talking to the deputy mayor's office. If you don't have her contact information, I'll give that to you.
Yeah, I will
It would be
definitely.
awesome if you could connect us, Karen. I know that, sorry, just really quick. She actually did come and speak to our ANC meeting. Um, and she spoke about the violence interrupter programs. And I think that her perspective on it may differ in terms of, that she thinks that the funding that the mayor's proposed is adequate. So she's amazing. She's very good at what she does. So it would be awesome if you could connect us with her because I do think like I said, that'd be really helpful to speak directly with the folks that are out there in the field working on this and thinking through it and representing the mayor.
Right. I think that the reason why I'm thinking that that's the better way to go, because one, you can have all of direct data. That's number one. And two, the testing of actually how the programs are working. Now, I'm not saying that you commit to it, and because the community may have a completely different perception, because they will see community always sees different than the government every time. So the community has a different perception. If a community feels as though a particular program works for their area, and they've seen it, because sometimes we only see numbers based on the bad things. We don't see what happens on the good side. And so, what you would want to do is if you are speaking to any of the programs that's in the area, find out from them what are the numbers from the good outcomes in which they've done and the people who they've interacted with. Like I've worked with a number of those various programs, and they'll give you numbers about the people who have successful outcomes. But the MPD will tell you that there's a certain group of people who create crime throughout the city, and they're consistently justice impacted throughout the city. Every time you turn around there, they're going through the justice system all the time. So and they basically they're they just been the lawlessness that's coming from that subset, probably 500 to 700 people in
Yeah.
that subgroup that is part of it, and their tentacles reach everywhere. And so you might want to that's you can hone in on that with MPD. But as far as the deputy mayor's office, I think that she would be able to tell you the programs that work, and if they have any thoughts in regards to what they want to do for the future, especially considering the budgetary issues that we're having right now, that's important. But we want to deal with the issues that you heard me passionately discuss earlier. Those are the things that are really truly the core issues that we have in the problem, I mean, in this area, and why people are perceiving what they're perceiving and going through the problems that they're going through. That needs to be addressed, and we can do all of these things consecutively, but I really want you to talk to the good, and when you're talking to the actual agencies, the nonprofits that do the work, ask them can you show us your work? What are your numbers in regards to your good outcomes? We see the numbers for the bad. Tell us what were your successes. That's how I would
Totally. And
start with
I,
interviewing.
I think Reverend Judy actually spoke to that at the community safety meeting in Ledroit, giving us, some specific anecdotes and stories about the good that these programs can really do. I think she had her hand up for a moment there. Sorry, I see your hand as well, Claire, but not sure if Reverend Judy, if you still want to speak, I'm going to allow you to talk, but if not, then no worries. We'll just keep discussing.
No, am I unmuted? Yes.
Yes.
Hi, everyone, and certainly thank you, Brandon, for sharing your draft proposal letter. I think it is a very needed and timely document that definitely needs to be shared with the Public Safety and Justice council member, as well as the areas that concern us the most in wards 1 and 4. But it's as Karen said, it's a citywide problem. It's all over, and we're not just faced with community crew-based violence. We have other crews or other coming from other neighborhoods, kind of teaming up. There's this new unfortunate strategy that the young people are engaging in, where they're teaming up with crews or groups from what was once a rival community, to kind of sort of, for lack of a better word or phrase, to even make their push for their narrative stronger, and their narrative is really based in using guns to taunt, to bully and intimidate, and even kill. So and until we can really get to the systemic kinds of things that drive this type of behavior, you know, we're really going to just be chasing good money after bad, and that's not what we want to do, right? We want to be on the prevention side. I've always believed that we did not put enough money in prevention because, you know, you don't really count the ones that didn't happen, but you do count the dead bodies, you do count the shootings, you do count. So we have all of that kind of data. And what I've been trying to do is service those that are most impacted by violence, whether they're a perpetrator or the victim, to give them, you know, opportunities to be served, to be assisted, and to have the opportunity to transform their life. Does it takes a lot because there are many levels that you have to do the lifting, right? There's intensive case management, there's some mental illness stuff that's going on, so there's health and wellness, and then there's the whole thing, you know, we understand homicide, but do we understand traumacide? We have so many communities that are just traumatized, from the littlest ones who hear shootings constantly to just everything that's going on in these communities right now without any real service to those that are most impacted. So I want to be a voice, a healing voice, and a solution at the grassroots level, at the community level, where we can really get into the weeds of changing mindsets and actually creating those kinds of models that actually heal from the inside out. Because until we get to the heart and soul of that individual, they're not likely to stop. Unfortunately, there's families, there's, you know, just generations of things that have to be unpacked and to get to the root. So I really, you know, really want to start by lifting those that are I call them my next up generation. Those are the kids that are now watching and waiting and sort of seeing all this stuff go on, and have the potential to become just like those that are in the community that seems to be getting all the attention, from the hideous rap music to the social media, you know, taunting that goes on through those lyrics. But we gotta combat it. We gotta throw at them almost the same thing in a different format, in a different on a different platform, but something that they can recognize and identify with, almost like meeting them where they are. And that's what I've engaged my work in with the CBT and the Peace Ambassador Certification Program that I'm trying to make a part of the schools. I want to do a summer camp in it. I spoke to Mr. Reese after the meeting last week about how we could do some more things and get space at Howard University to start getting the younger children in the LaJoy community and Columbia Heights, you know, to participate early on in these programs that'll follow them through school. So I'm busy writing grants, trying to see how we can invest as much in the preventive side as we do on the interruption and intervention side, which is taking a beating right now because the numbers not necessarily going in the direction that they want them to, especially in certain communities. We got the hotspot communities, but then the ones where it has, you know, we've done a great job. You know, the young people that were creating the crimes have been locked up, but you know what? They're getting ready to come home, and it doesn't help to have an attorney general that says, "Oh, the cure model doesn't fit in Wards 1 and 4 anymore. Therefore, that's why we decided not to fund it." Well, you know, your very model is what I've leveraged to get all of these other grants to enhance what I've done in the cure communities in 1 and 4. And it does work, and it has worked. We just, you know, there were several young people situations that got resolved over the weekend as a result of our work, right? We can't talk a lot about the specifics of how we do what we do, but we do manage to get things done, and all of our work is based on relationships. So when we have a public figure like the Attorney General not really speaking to the actual real data, that's hurtful and harmful to the effort and to the young people who literally are on the front line, their boots on the ground, and put their life at risk every day to continue to see this work. So I'm hoping that we do merge, Brandon, that we do become one single version one copy of our violence prevention initiative, because I think it has created a divisive spirit that undermines the work.
Thank you so much for that, and definitely, Reverend Judy, I think we want to be in touch soon to work on this with you. Really quick, Claire, I see your hand up. I know that Karen has to go in a moment, and I want to talk about the public safety walk. So if it's all right, just going to have Karen speak briefly, talk about, thank you so much, talk about the public safety walk that we're trying to plan, because I think the two big things we have to get there are proposed dates, and then what are our like goals, like what do we want to talk about during those walks. But I'm going to move us along from the violence interrupter resolution. Thank you so much for sharing, Brandon. I know we have a lot more work to do, but I think this feedback's really helpful. So Karen, if you have any time at all, if not, no worries, but feel free to give us a very brief, starter, and we can talk about it once you go.
Oh, I'm sorry, I had to give my portion, my input report.
No. Thank you so much. It is very helpful to understand the context of what's going on. I'm not sure if Karen's still on our call also. We may. All right.
If Karen is gone, I just have
Yes,
a
Claire,
couple questions for
you go
Brandon.
ahead.
I'm a Southerner, but I am still in the need for expedience. So I want to be very quick with Brandon, and I want you to know that these are absolutely not critiques. They are more questions to bolster your resolution, and we don't have to answer them right now. So first, I would like to know that it seems these programs are overlapping, and if you could provide like specific examples of when the overlapping has hurt the priorities of both of these programs. That's the first one. When the overlapping has hurt the priorities of both of these programs. Second, I would like to make sure that the evidence-based isn't just a buzzword, and what specific objectives, quantitatively, qualitatively, that you have in mind. I think you already answered that, so we'll move on and we'll go to 3. The resolution mentions an oversight body. I would absolutely love to know that how is it appointed, how is it vetted, and everything in there. These are not critiques. These are just like something meant to bolster the resolution. Again, I absolutely am supportive of it. I would just like to have it fleshed out a little bit more.
I think those are all great questions.
Yeah, I'll briefly just say, so when I came up with the resolution, it was strictly just based off our first call with Miss Judy and reading the article that Francois sent, and that was what I gleaned from what I read. And after talking it out with him and fleshing it out, and this call confirmed that, I definitely think instead of being emotional with it, I think definitely a strategic plan. I think interviews, I think a strategy, developing relationships in the community, political support. What's appropriated is what's appropriate. There's nothing we can do this year, but for next year, I think if we can get enough information in conjunction with this resolution, to your point, I think we could flesh out something that could be helpful.
Great.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's all you wanted to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that's a great point, Brandon, about, trying to plan for next year, plan for going forward, and, how can we really, help advocate for these programs and the oversight and, doing the interviews with a lot of different folks to get that evidence, to get that data and get those recommendations. And then hopefully, we can help advocate for an even better case for why these programs really need the funding, and why they can do a lot of good, because as Reverend Judy has discussed, there are some really important things they can do, and there are stories of them really preventing violence. So we want to figure out how best to maximize that. So yeah, the last thing, and unfortunately Karen had to go, and I know it's getting late. We're trying to work on planning a public safety walk. So Karen had said that Thursdays would generally be good days to do it because MPD isn't too busy with all the nightlife, so they can actually devote time to us. So I would probably do it around 7, 8 p.m. and walk around in the 1B area, specifically on U Street. are there dates that folks want to throw out there? And then also, are there any, goals or other agencies that folks would want to have at that public safety walk?
If I could throw it out there, I would absolutely love to have like 2 beat cops.
For sure.
Yeah.
Leah, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is this something that we would want sort of restricted is not the word I want, but like restricted to just this committee? Or is this something we would want to open up either to the community or just to the ANC, like to the other committees or other commissioners in general?
That's a great question. From my conversation with Karen, it seems like it would be focused on ANC1B. So it would probably be, I would invite the other commissioners and then our committee. So we'd be the main ones there. And I think there's value to opening it up to the whole community, but there's also value to trying to just focus on the committee members and the commissioners so that we can really ask our questions with MPD. But that is a good question. Are there any specific days that would work for people? I mean, I'm looking at July here.
I have a
Potentially.
blackout date at the end of July. My godson is getting facial surgery.
Okay, good. Well, hopefully everything all goes well with that. I know that also the 3D CAC meetings the last Thursday of July, so looks like days that could work would potentially be July 17th, July 24th, and August. Well, there's the ANC1B meeting, so then August 14th would be the next day. So
17th is great for me. I love a prime number.
lovely. Any other thoughts in terms of days? Because it really is, want to give you all first dibs.
Fine with those days.
Yeah, I think all those days work for me.
Okay, great. I'll talk with Karen then. And so July 17th, July 24th, August 14th. I'll add August 21st as a later out date as well. And hopefully we can choose from there. Were there any specific goals that people would have for the walk or specific, what what would we like when the walk is over, I guess, what would we have liked to have discussed and made clear to MPD and learn more about and advocated for, I guess.
If I could say anything, I think it would be prioritizing small business owners. I think of the chicken shop next to me, and I think they would have a lot to say if, a little bit carefully. But I think that's, eat the lowest hanging fruit or starve. And so going into, the quote unquote bodegas, the chicken shop, etc., and talking to the small business owners who might be a little bit more effusive about specific problems because they're there all the time. That would be my priority.
That's a good point. I definitely think if the business owners are there or if we're able to sort of represent their interests, we can talk with them about that. Anything else?
No, I agree with that, but I did want to say that the 21st of August I won't be in town. Just if you do it that day.
Got it. Good to know. Okay, well, yep, that sounds good. I will follow up with everybody about where we land on that. And hopefully we can get that on the books. I think it'll be great to see everybody in person and to actually be out in the community looking at things and pointing out where we see problems. Um, fantastic. Well, trying to think if there's anything else that we needed to discuss tonight. We already heard some community announcements, but if anybody else has any community announcements, speak now or forever hold your peace. Go ahead, Claire. Or
Oh no, I'm just giggling.
okay, gotcha. Um, great. Well, thank you all for coming to the meeting and for participating and engaging on these, difficult but important topics. Really looking forward to the public safety walk, to working more on the violence interrupter resolution, to continuing to partner on the rec center and maybe on some sort of survey or outreach to youth to figure out, What do they need? How can we try to keep them safe and give them better places to be than, out front of the metro at 11 p.m. on a Friday? I think that, it's great to hear these new ideas sparking up and connections being made. So, I think that's great. So yeah, I will see you all next month. Until then, please be safe. Bye.